Hi everyone, welcome to today's training. I'm so happy to be here with you all. Whether you are going to be watching live, whether you're tuning in on the replay, thank you for being here. I promise that this training is going to be so packed with helpful tips that you can actually take away with you. And they're likely going to be things that you have not heard before. So thanks so much for being here. As you're joining, feel free to let me know where you're joining from or why you decided to come tonight, and I'll definitely take a look at the replies. So tonight we're going to be talking about emotional regulation. And this is a topic that I'm so passionate about and find it to be so important, not only in our current climate, but just in general in life. Not only does learning how to regulate our emotions help us with being able to feel better in our physical bodies, in our lived experience in everyday life, but it actually helps us connect to ourselves so that we can connect to others, so that we can have deeper connection and intimacy with, loved ones, with partners, spouses, kids, family, whomever. So thank you so much for being here. I'm definitely going to share more skills. Thanks, Sarah. I love that that's why you're here. And that's what we're here for, right? For actual tangible skills. And that's what you're going to get. So real quick, who am I? In case you don't know me, my name is Ashley Perl, and I'm a somatic healing coach and a breathwork guide. Breathwork is just one of the tools that I use for nervous system support. We'll kind of get into that a little later. And that really creates a strong foundation for more of the healing work to begin. And my work really focuses on leveraging the mind-body connection, prioritizing the body's wisdom. Because some work out there really prioritizes the mind, the cognitive, and that plays such a beautiful role in someone's journey of healing and transformation. But what I know to be true is that so much of our current reality, our behaviors, things that, we might do or experience and and we're not quite sure why, that's what I'm trying to say. We're doing these things that maybe are causing a little bit of uneasiness, distress in our lives. Often that's because there's something happening in the body that hasn't been resolved, that hasn't been addressed. And so today we're going to talk about one of the biggest pieces of wisdom that we can pull from our body, and that is our emotions. But if we can't regulate our emotions, and if our emotions are constantly taking us on a ride that we're just trying to ground ourselves all the time, it's going to be really hard to pull that wisdom, right? It's going to be really hard to figure out what message are these emotions even trying to teach me. So that's what we're here to do today. And I thought it was interesting that, when Faye and the team shared that this was a topic that people really wanted to learn about, what that tells me is that, hey Faye, oh hi, thanks for being here. What that tells me is that a lot of people are likely experiencing emotional dysregulation, okay? And if that's you, I just want to say I see you, I understand what that's like, and I really, really believe that the tools I'm going to share today will be supportive to you, and hopefully something that you can start using even the minute you get off of this session, okay? So I want to also name that we received 2 questions before this that I'm going to answer. One is and I'm just going to look over here so I say it correctly. How do we regulate besides with just breathing or grounding skills? And I love that question because a lot of what I see happening in the kind of space today is a lot of reactive tools. So people are feeling emotionally dysregulated and they're trying to meditate, they're trying to ground, they're trying to breathe, and that's beautiful. That definitely can help and support you. But more so maybe with the nervous system regulation, which we're going to talk about. Navigating your emotions is a skill that requires some other tools that hopefully you can learn here today, okay? And then the second question is, why does it seem like everyone around me is dysregulated? And I did answer this a little bit more on my stories as well, but it's a really interesting observation. And I believe that right now, what we're being kind of asked to do as you know, a collective, what we're seeing is that there's so much happening in the world that we have to up-level our tools in the way that we take care of ourselves, not just our physical bodies, right? We know how important it is to lift weights and exercise, but what about our emotional bodies? What about our energetic bodies? What are we doing to ensure that we're not constantly wrapped up in anxiety and fear? Because we know that that's not really so helpful, and the world really needs us to be grounded in our truth, grounded in our belief, in our faith, in anything else, okay? The world wants to see you and feel you in that. So let me know if that resonates. I hope it does and that it makes sense. If you can't tell, I'm very passionate about this topic. So let's quickly, before we go into the tips for regulation, let's talk about why sometimes people are dysregulated, like what that actually means. So if you're dysregulated, if you're experiencing emotional dysregulation, you might experience a lot of mood swings. Maybe you're oscillating between, you know, really high highs and really low lows, and it kind of just feels like an up and down, okay? Let me know if that's something that resonates with you. Perhaps you are emotionally reactive, meaning no matter what the stimulus is, like no matter what happens in your life, you might feel like your emotions really quickly, like you respond in a way that doesn't always match what the situation is calling for. So maybe, you know, your child asks you a question and you respond with like a, you know, like maybe it doesn't exactly equate. And when that happens, there's like a disconnect, right? There's something going on there. Let's see what else. Oh, and this is important. Perhaps once you're in an emotion, once you're kind of navigating some emotion that maybe feels like it's like overcome you, a lot of people that are highly sensitive feel this way. You might feel like you can't seem to get down back into like your center, back into a regulated state. And I think that's a really big one, you know. And then lastly, you might feel like you're in a state of constant anxiety, overwhelm, stress, frantic energy. That's more, and we'll get to this in a moment, that's kind of higher up on, you know, the scale of maybe you're hyper aroused, but you might also feel like you're really numb, really exhausted all the time, really like emotionless. And that actually could be a way of being dysregulated as well. So just take note of where you are on this spectrum and know wherever you are, it's okay, because you're here and you're here to learn and you're here to grow, and this is all just an opportunity for you, okay? So now let's get into the tips. I have 5 key tips that I'm almost positive you all won't know some of these, or maybe they're new, and so I'd love to know which one of these you're going to maybe try or take away. And I believe that these are sequential, meaning kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If any of you guys remember that from school and psychology, you have to start with one and strengthen one in order to get to the next one, in order for the next one to kind of make sense. And I think that that's a really key piece in, you know, why are people emotionally dysregulated? Well, I think there's some foundational things that we as a society have missed, and it's no one's fault. We're learning these tools, and now that you're learning them, you get to share them with others, okay? So step number 1, or tip number 1, it's a skill. Emotional regulation, like understanding emotions, is the first step, because regulating your emotions is a skill and it's learned. And who teaches you, or where should we have learned this? Well, your caretakers when you were growing up, okay? However, if you grew up in an environment where you weren't taught how to effectively navigate or feel your feelings, or you had caretakers, you know, mom or dad or whoever was taking care of you when you were young, who didn't know how to healthily manage their emotions, or even were a little bit, you know, not like unstable in their emotions. You never knew what you were going to get. And your body, your nervous system had that to try to like follow along with and to regulate with. It's likely that now you still struggle as an adult to navigate your emotions. And so I share that to say, please have compassion for yourself, because sometimes clients will come to me and they'll be like, oh my gosh, my emotions, I don't know, I should know this by now. I'm right 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. And I say, like, no, that's not necessarily true, right? We don't know until we know. And we have to be so loving and compassionate with ourselves to understand that a lot of us weren't taught this because our parents didn't know, and it wasn't their fault, but they were doing the best that they could with what they knew, okay? And so understanding that is really, really important. And then furthermore, understanding that because of whatever you were taught or not taught as a child, you likely developed coping mechanisms in order to feel safe in your environment, in your body. And it's likely that those coping mechanisms are part of what's maybe causing you a little bit of unease or distress today. So for example, maybe it wasn't safe to have emotions. Maybe you were the sensitive one in the family and you were always being told, like, just toughen up. And so you learned to toughen up, but those emotions still had to go somewhere. And so it was trapped in your body, okay? Perhaps you learned to numb your emotions and food became your best friend, or TV became your best friend. And those are strategies that you still use today. Again, have compassion with yourself, because in all of these scenarios, pause due to poor connection, but looks like we're back. I hope we're good. Let me know if you can't hear me, please, in the chat. Thank you. Your body created coping mechanisms to help you. And so we get to understand that, okay? And so let's see if there's anything else I want to say here with this. This last piece, understanding that you not only carry the emotions that maybe you've suppressed, pushed down, navigated your entire life, but there's a lot more happening here in our bodies that meets the eye. Generationally, you carry the same DNA, the same genetics that were impacted by the trauma of your parents, your maternal lineage and their lineage. And, it's likely that so much of what you're experiencing today is a response to something that maybe wasn't even yours, but it gets to be your opportunity to heal. Okay. And I feel very strongly on this. And I know that so many people that come to me right now are descendants of Holocaust survivors. They're descendants of people who perhaps fled from wherever they were because of Jewish persecution. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And when they're wondering, why am I always dysregulated? Well, right now, their nervous systems are freaking out. For lack of a better term, they're scared. There's a primal fear of, oh my gosh, we're not safe. And it gives me chills as I say it, but I want you all to understand, like, this stuff goes far beyond, like, oh, I'm sad today, can I be with it? It's so much deeper than that, because being with the emotions that come forth and learning how to navigate them and regulate them, it's clearing and healing something, not only for you, but for generations to come. And so I thank you all for being here and doing this work. Woo, we're getting deep real quick here. Okay. In addition to that, it's important to know that there are some other factors here that might be impacting, your ability to regulate things like hormones, trauma, ADHD, things like that, which I'm not going to get into today, but I'll say this. If you try these tools that I shared today and you're still really, really struggling, then perhaps it would be supportive to work with a professional so that you can get some more one-to-one support, okay? And maybe there are some other things that are going on that you can explore. All right, so that was really important background. I realize we're already 15 minutes in, and if we don't get through all of this, I'm going to do a part 2 because that background was really important, and I also don't want to make this so long. So we're going to go for another 10 to 15 minutes, okay? And now we're going to get into the tips. I know I said we were at the tips, but that was actually more the background. So here's tip number 1. To regulate your emotions, you first have to understand what emotions even are. And that might sound silly, but so many of us, like we talked about earlier, we're never taught what emotions really are, right? Or maybe we were taught the belief around them, like emotions are bad, emotions make you weak, whatever the story. Understanding what emotions are will actually help you navigate it because it's like getting the user manual for your body, right? We're not given a user manual for when we're born of this is how to navigate emotions. No, we just get the manual based off what our caretakers taught us, and that's not always the most sufficient. Let's say that. So emotions are psychological and physiological responses to stimuli that include our physical sensations in the body, our cognitive association, so the meaning that we make out of the feeling. But it's important to note, our bodies feel the sensation first. And so the reason why, I talk about the body first approach, right? The body centered approach in my work. And that's because the body has so much wisdom that often our minds haven't caught up to yet. So think about, maybe your partner, your spouse, or, a husband, wife has said something to you, and you can feel like you're starting to get mad. Your body starts to tense, but you don't actually know what you're angry about, right? There's something there. The body is telling you that a line has been crossed, a boundary has been crossed, something is there, and that's just information for you, because emotions are messengers. Emotions are messengers that carry information to you about something really important, if and only if you lean in to understand it, right? And so understanding that emotions carry messages is really important. And then also understanding that emotions, emotion, they're energy in motion. We're energetic beings. And these messengers, they want to share the message with you, and then they want to carry on their way. Okay, I think about like a timer, like a 60-second timer. Well, emotions, they say, actually take 90 seconds to process if we actually allow them to be there, which most people are surprised to learn, because sometimes it feels like if we lean into our emotions, we're going to be stuck there forever. It's not true. But emotions want to just complete their cycle, and then they'll dissipate. But what we often do is that we suppress and we avoid, and we think, oh, that's too hard to look at. And then what happens? That energy gets trapped in our bodies. And that's where we start to build it up. And then when finally it's built up to the brim and it's falling over, our emotions, we start becoming more reactive. And that's a really big reason why a lot of people are dysregulated today. So that's number one. Okay, understanding emotions. Number two is, in order to regulate your emotions, a prerequisite, so to speak, is you have to be connected to your body, and you have to have safety in your body, a felt sense of safety. Because emotions are happening in the body, right? The sensations that we just talked about, the mind-body kind of connection, kind of thinking about what's the meaning I'm making of the sensation I'm experiencing. If we can't even feel, then it will be hard, to regulate, okay? And it will be hard to feel these emotions through and let them kind of complete their cycle so they don't get stored inside of us. But that's not easy for everybody, okay? Meet yourself where you're at with this, because like I said earlier, you might have had a coping mechanism from when you were younger that created this shield of armor around you and made it so you don't feel. That helped you when you were young. That helped you survive at some period of time. However, now you're experiencing the symptoms perhaps of not feeling for so many years. Maybe it's anxiety. Maybe it's just feeling disconnected. Maybe it's a lack of intimacy. Whatever it is, this is the pathway, is to start to build safety within your own body so that you can feel the emotions that are there. And again, maybe it is helpful to work with someone where you can, receive support in this. But I want to talk a little bit about like what that means, developing safety to feel. Often our minds will convince our bodies that an emotion is too hard for us. That it's too much, okay? But here's the thing. Our bodies are really wise, you guys. And your body is not going to give you something that you can't handle. It's just a little bit of like a dance between the mind and the fear and the body and the wisdom. And, I'll share, I had a client today who we were going through something pretty deep together. She was exploring her fear of like speaking up around her family. She feels like her voice, like it just goes away when she's around her family. There's a lot of fear of being criticized, of being ostracized. And we hit on a really deep wound from when she was young. And immediately her body went into like a freeze. Like she started getting scared. And what we did was we grounded together. And so there's that grounding word, but we established safety in her system. I was there with her. I was regulating with her, helping her regulate her own nervous system and her body. And what happened, the emotion that she's been pushing down since she was around like 7 years old, we gave it a safe space to go through its peak and then complete its cycle. And that's the kind of work I'm talking about here. Okay, it's not always going to be so intense. That's just one example of what I mean by safety to feel. She developed so many protectors to keep her from feeling, because feeling wasn't safe when she was young. So this is what I mean, you guys, and maybe you resonate. If you're looking for a place to start, I invite you to just start feeling into sensations in your body as opposed to the meaning you're making of them. So what I mean by that, and I'm going to get a charger for my phone as I'm talking to you guys, because that somehow went really quickly. What I mean by that is noticing, can you feel a sensation? Can you put a texture to the emotion that you're feeling in your body? Can you locate where you're starting to feel that from? And the more you do that, the more you build this embodied somatic awareness, is what it's called, the safer your body is going to start to feel, because you're kind of exercising this muscle. That's all this is. It's a skill. It's a muscle. Okay. And have curiosity and have compassion with yourself. Those are the two key things: curiosity and compassion. Okay. All right. Moving on to tip number, 3. Tip number 3. We're going to breeze through this one because I've talked about it in other trainings, but it's about getting to know your nervous system. So without going into the details about the nervous system, the main takeaway here, and I'm pulling this from the polyvagal theory, at any point in time, we're somewhere on the scale of hyper aroused, okay, in this really like active, anxious state, to all the way on the low end, which is what I mentioned earlier, kind of like this numb, hypo aroused is what's called state, where we're maybe exhausted, even depressed, to the center. And the center is where we're the most regulated. This is the window of tolerance. And that's where we have connection. That's where we can regulate our emotions. This is the space we want to be. But if our nervous system is dysregulated, right, a little bit different than emotional regulation, so notice the differences there, we will be oscillating between highs or lows, and not often in the center, or sometimes in the center, and then someone says something, and then we're back up here into anxiety. So working on your nervous system, and this is where I will reference the breath, which plug, if you want to come breathe with me tomorrow, we're doing a little breathwork tomorrow, and you can find that link in my bio with OKclarity. We'll be doing just drop-ins. It's 45 minutes. But there's other tools for nervous system regulation, one of which someone asked in their questions, right? The grounding and some other techniques that are more for the nervous system, okay? But that's important, because if our nervous system doesn't feel safe, then any of the other healing work and the emotion work that we're trying to do, it's not going to take, because our body is just going to be wired for safety and survival, and we can't heal or feel regulated when we're in a state of survival. Okay? So that's number 3. Now let's go into step number 4. I think I'm actually going to be able to finish this. Beautiful. And yes, learn Aleph. Of course, you're welcome for the reminder to breathe deeply. Everyone, I've noticed I've been talking fast, and I think it's because I want to finish this within a half hour, because I want to be mindful of everyone's time. And so let's all take a deep breath together. I would love that. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. Let's move on to our final 2 steps. Let me know how these steps are resonating so far, you guys. And if you want to breathe tomorrow and explore a little bit of nervous system regulation, which is a beautiful place to start, you absolutely can join us. It's free to join. There's an optional donation if you'd like, but you can find that link in my bio. Okay, number 4. I'm so excited for this one because I don't know that you've heard of this. So a big part of the work that I do is pulled from Richard Schwartz's internal family systems, parts work. And if you haven't heard of this, that's okay, because I'm going to explain it a little bit. But essentially, I believe that a key piece of learning to regulate your emotions is learning about all the different parts of you that are actually getting that are getting triggered or activated. I'll use those words interchangeably sometimes. Triggered, I believe, is a true trauma response based on my trauma-informed studies, but activated is more like you feel something happening in your system, right? Like someone says something and you're like, oh, like something's going on in here, okay? And essentially, if you can see patterns, like if you can start to notice patterns, like are you emotionally reactive all the time or dysregulated all the time? Is it just when you're at your family's house? Is it just when your sister-in-law says something to you? Like there might be patterns there that then point to core wounding and parts of you that are kind of coming online in current day and running the show. What do I mean by that? We are in this field of study, right? In this work, we have different parts of ourselves. Our core, true, authentic self, where we feel grounded, calm, centered. It's like what we want, right? It's what we strive for. But that's often covered up. I think about it as like, that's like the light running through us. And often it's really dimmed and covered up by all of these other parts of us that are like happening all over our bodies that were created in some moment in time when we were growing up. And it was almost like a coping mechanism, right? When we were trying to get our needs met. And so perhaps that strategy worked, right, back in the day, but now it doesn't work. And essentially those parts are the ones that are getting activated. So parts of us that feel afraid, parts of us that feel like we're being criticized, parts of us that, right, insert whatever here. But it's likely that if you're reacting with something that feels like it doesn't match the scenario, perhaps that reaction is coming from like an inner child part. And this is why it's so powerful to get to know your parts, because when you can determine the parts of you that are being activated, you can kind of separate it from it a little bit and get to work with it. And you can begin to identify, heal, and learn to soothe those parts. And you no longer are going to be reactive because you're going to be meeting those needs of yours in a much healthier way. It is such beautiful work, you guys. And I find it to be the most like potent when it comes to what helps my clients the most. I would say it's the somatic parts work, hands down. So that's step number 4. I think that unless you understand why you're being activated, why certain things are causing this dysregulation, like it may not only be about your nervous system, it may actually be that there are parts of you that are just unhealed, that are like asking for your attention, okay? It's all happening for you, I promise. And then we get to number 5, okay? The last step, and this is the one that you probably do know. You have to have some sort of tools to process your emotions and to heal. Okay, processing and healing tools, because emotions are just energy, like I said, right? They're often tied to parts of us, but at their core, they're energy. So learning how to process and move that energy, sometimes it takes just awareness. So looking at the emotion inside of you, like giving it your attention enough so that it can finish its cycle. Sometimes just naming it, like separating from it and noticing, I'm experiencing anger right now. Asking it, how does that emotion want to be moved? How does it want to dissipate? How can I healthily like discharge it? So discharge the anger, discharge the sadness, kind of let it run its course in your body in a healthy way. Because when you do that, you're not going to build it up so much in your system. And this is proactive work, which I think a lot of people miss. It's not all reactive work. We have to be taking care of our emotional and energetic hygiene on like a regular basis, okay? So that's a key piece. And then the other key piece is stories, like starting to create all these stories, or, talking for an hour with your therapist about why you're sad. That's not necessarily going to get rid of the sadness. The sadness has to be fully felt. It has to be fully seen for what it is, in order for it to kind of go through its process. And I make this shape because often there's like a, ooh, we're feeling it. Oh my gosh, it's intense. And oh, okay, we're past that wave, right? We rode the wave of the emotion. And to help you with this, I've mentioned like working with a professional can be supportive, but something called CoRegulation can be supportive. So if you're feeling an emotion that feels a little bit overwhelming for you, if you're trying to find safety in your body in order to feel it, you can connect with someone, like sit with someone, whether on Zoom or in person, who has a really stable grounding presence. And that might actually help your nervous system connect to theirs and regulate with theirs. It's called CoRegulation. And that might help resource you to feel the emotion. So a lot of tips in there, okay? But those were the 5 steps. So to go over it one more time, we have tip number one, understand what emotions even are, the fact that they carry messages and that they're energy, that they're physical sensations and energy that just want to move through your body. 2, connecting to your body and developing safety in your body. That's the second tip. 3, get to know your nervous system. 4, get to know your parts and the actual parts of you that are getting emotion, that are getting triggered and activated so that you can start to heal. And through the healing comes the regulation. And number 5, create your toolkit. You know, we all need to have toolkits for healing and clearing and processing emotion. This is like human body 101 that most of us never got. Okay. Oh, that should be a course. I'm going to make that human body manual 101. But I truly, truly believe that if you start to try even one of these, okay, and let me know which one you're going to start with, you're going to start to feel a really big difference. Because just one of these will make a really big difference, okay? So thank you so much for staying with me, those of you who are here. Hey, Steph, yes, CoRegulation, amazing, feelings equals energy, absolutely. Best of luck to all of you. Thank you for doing this work, because the work that you all do on yourselves, on your emotions, on your nervous systems, it has such a profound impact on the world. Truly, truly such a profound impact, okay? So never think that what you're doing isn't important. It's always important. And if you're curious about more of this work, you can absolutely message me, come join Breathwork tomorrow, reach out to me on the OKclarity platform, or find someone, a practitioner on there. There's so many amazing practitioners that really feel good to you, okay? Have a great rest of your day, night, morning, evening, and I will see you on next week's training. Bye-bye.